seats down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Well, we'll go with two of those. Producer John out again this weekend. Their business tends to take precedence. He promises he'll be back next week. We'll see. Matt's here. We're going to get into former F1 champion potentially trying to make a comeback. Indycar at the White House. Why? We'll tell you. Denny Hamlin into a social media argument with who? Yeah. What's the latest with North Wilkesboro Speedway and that little moonshine cavern that they suspect that's what it was? Hendrick Motorsports breaking out a special look, not just for one car, but for all of them. We'll show them to you here on CRN Live on YouTube. Liberty Media apparently liking racing so much that they're taking over another series. We got details on that, and we got so much more coming up as we go. Yeah, we're going to expand a little bit upon what we talked about during this week's Crossed Flags episode as well. If you missed that, it came down on Tuesday. Green flag.
Of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, welcome into it. First weekend of the month of April, which means Talladega Week. Actually, Speed Week's here in the state of Alabama because Talladega will be backed up by the Children's of Alabama Honda Grand Prix at Barber Motorsports Park the very next weekend. How do we know? Matt and I are going to be at both. Can't wait. It's going to be good.
Yep.
Mention the fact just before the break that we did cross flags on Tuesday. Usually that's a Wednesday deal. That was because Matt had to go out of town and make a quick return back. Everything kind of went a little weird throughout the course of that process, from what I understand.
That's weird is an understatement.
You're happy it's over.
I'm happy it's over because the travel day Wednesday was when you encounter thunderstorms in Atlanta, you encounter snow in Chicago, and you get to Arkansas, and it's a absolute death cloud of pollen in the blazing sunshine, and you're landing in a crosswind where when you know for a fact your airplane is landing like this on the runway, yeah. And then you sleep combined about 4 hours between Wednesday and last night.
Yep.
I'm in rare form today.
Good times, no doubt about it. Well, while he gets himself geared up, let's go ahead and talk about what happened last weekend. Joe Gibbs Racing 1 week ago today, as we air live on Saturday. Always good at Richmond Raceway, proven out by the 1-2-3 finish in the Xfinity Series race at the 3/4 mile short track. Marks back-to-back wins, by the way, for Chandler Smith at Richmond as well. He led the final 60 laps, bringing his total laps led on the night to 76. Bested his JGR teammates Eric Almirola and Taylor Gray to the checkered flag. Corey Hyman, another Toyota, finished fourth, then followed by Jesse Love. Bubba Pollard, in his first Xfinity Series race, brought the car home in sixth.
He had the better long-run car, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
If he had a little bit better track position in the last restart, he might have snuck a top three out.
There you go. Who else was in there? Parker Kligerman, Austin Hill, Sammy Smith, Cole Custer complete your top 10. Chandler Smith, Austin Hill, we'll get back to him, sitting in there with 2 wins on the young season, the only drivers with wins at this time as we head into racing at Martinsville later today. In on points, Cole Custer, Jesse Love, Riley Herbst, A.J. Allmendinger, Justin Allgaier, Parker Kligerman, Sammy Smith, Brandon Jones, Sheldon Creed, and Anthony Alfredo. Alfredo with a slim 1-point advantage over Shane Van Gisbergen for that 12th and final playoff spot. Sunday, Cup Series took to the short track for an Easter evening race. And like Saturday, it was a Joe Gibbs Racing kind of run, but not really who most thought were going to get it. If you've been watching there as the laps started to wind down, Martin Truex Jr. had been leading for 54 laps, had a decent lead when a caution came out with only 2 laps left to go. All the leaders came down pit road. When it was done, Denny Hamlin's 11 team, the pit crew got him out front. Truex ended up second. Now, Hamlin's always been good on restarts, but clearly, and I'm sorry, it is clear if you watch the replay that he punched the loud pedal before he got into the Geico restart zone. Yeah. But NASCAR didn't call it, saying they felt afterward that it was just too close to call. We'll get back into that conversation here in a bit. And again, I invite you to go watch Cross Flags, which came down on Tuesday. That'll be a much more in-depth conversation.
A teaser to when we get back into this. Dale Earnhardt Jr. apparently is reading my mind or watching our broadcast of some way, because he said exactly what I said, word for word.
We'll get back to it. Hamlin either way rolls on to the win. Truex couldn't recover. He actually slipped to fourth in the final rundown. Hamlin wins. Joey Logano second. Kyle Larson gets up to third, then Truex. Chase Elliott, Christopher Bell, William Byron, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, and Tyler Reddick filled out the top 10. Hamlin and William Byron now have 2 wins each, then a win each for Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, and Daniel Suarez, and that leaves those who were in on points, led by the aforementioned Martin Truex Jr. Ty Gibbs, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, Alex Bowman, Chris Buescher, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace. Try not to combine 2 people. With Brad Keselowski filling out the field of 16. He holds a 7-point lead over John Hunter Nemechek for that final playoff spot. So that brings us to this weekend's slate of racing, amongst the series that we cover anyway. It actually started last night. Craftsman Truck Series running the Long John Silver's 200 at a fairly chilly Martinsville Speedway. You just mentioned the fact that in Chicago he came across snow. They had snow flurries last night at Martinsville.
Crazy. Wow. Absolutely crazy.
It's April, right?
Last I checked.
Looking at the calendar, but, wanted to make sure. Either way, didn't seem to mess things up too much. Fox Sports 1, MRN Radio had the coverage. Christian Eckes, your man to beat, and nobody did. He led the first 104 laps. He was leading at both stages. The worst track position he had on the day was 19th after a pit stop on stage 2. but he was back out front less than 65 laps later. That's the kind of truck he had. It was a good one. 11 cautions for 81 laps, slowing down the action, but Eckes easily holds off Ty Majeski for the win. Chase Purdy third, then Nick Sanchez and Tyler Ankrum in the top 5. Taylor Gray, Rajah Caruth, Sammy Smith, Caden Honeycutt, nice run for him, and Corey Heim fill out the top 10. So Eckes has 2 wins on the year with one win each. It's Corey Heim, Nick Sanchez, and Rajah Caruth. So you got 4 locked into the playoffs. Points-wise, it's Ty Majeski, then Tyler Ankrum, Taylor Gray, Matt Crafton, Grant Enfinger, Ben Rhodes, Tanner Gray, and Jake Garcia all qualifying for the playoffs. Garcia with a slim 2-point advantage over Daniel Dye for that 12th playoff spot. That'll bring us to today. That's where in Martinsville, the Xfinity Series is going to get things rolling with the Dude Wipes 250 on the short track. Fox Sports 1 MRN Radio, the race coverage getting underway 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Now, tonight, again, Formula One is back in action. They're going to run the MSC Cruises Japanese Grand Prix. They're taken to the Suzuka course, 18 turns, 3.6 miles long. Japan, kind of like Australia here in the U.S., going to make for a late one. It'll air on ESPN at a time that I'm going to be asleep. 1 a.m. Eastern, midnight Central Time.
I think I'll be asleep, too.
He needs to be asleep. Just saying. Cup Series tomorrow, taking center stage, the Cookout 400 at Martinsville. The race airs on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio beginning at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. Fox is airing the new United Football League. In case you missed that, that's the combination of the former XFL and USFL. After Cup Series coverage on Fox Sports 1, the NHRA will take over with the delayed finals of the Arizona Nationals from Firebird Raceway Park. Airtime will be at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central Time, or whenever Cup coverage concludes. Formula E and Indycar are both off this weekend. In fact, Indycar got themselves into the middle of a nice, fairly long stretch of having time off. But that's all right. We'll deal with it. Let's see here. Cup Series. Let's go back to Richmond here, and we'll fill out this segment talking about this. Again, here is the thing. I was at a dinner, so I didn't get the chance to watch this race at Richmond.
Yeah.
I was at a dinner, and then I get up for my regular Monday through Friday job at 3:30 in the morning. I'm not going to stay up and watch a race that's going to conclude at well after 9 p.m. at night. Sorry, I'm just not going to do it because I got to be fairly well on it. So I didn't get to see this live. And Matt and I had texted last Sunday night, and I told him I've got my phone on silent. Just send me a text because we're also in Fantasy League. And when I had last checked on the race, my 3 drivers were all doing pretty good from all the drivers that we had to choose from. So I was like, yeah, just send me a text. Let me know where these 3 guys finish. And we'll go from there. Well, one of the guys I chose was Hamlin. So I actually benefited from this call, but at the same time, I'm not sure that I should have. So I wake up in the morning and start to get everything rolling and check my text messages, and I see where they finished. And then all I got from him otherwise was NASCAR screwed the call up.
Again.
Okay, this ought to be interesting. So when I get to work and I get everything settled in, I take a quick look at the video, and I'm looking at it on my phone. You can see how big it is. It's not the biggest screen on the planet. Certainly not a flat screen TV like on my wall. Video is about yay big. I didn't even turn it to the side to make it go full screen. I mean, literally just the top third of the screen on my cell phone. I could tell on the first play of the video, Hamlin jumped the restart. There's no doubt about it. He did. Martin Truex Jr. got very vocal about it in post-race interviews, and on top of that, Truex, who restarted on the outside, added that he felt that his teammate, quote, used him up in turn 1, unquote. Well, Hamlin got to defending himself, which I understand that. I'm sure he would have. I would have done it if I were in Hamlin's place, so would Matt. Quote, I went right at, for sure. I did that because I saw those guys rolling to me. The 22, Logano, behind him was laying back. The 19, Truex, was rolling a couple of miles an hour quicker than I was. I'm sorry, I didn't see it that way. So I wasn't going to let them have an advantage that my team earned on pit road. I certainly made sure once my nose got there that I took off right away. NASCAR Senior VP of Competition, Elton Sawyer, told Fox Sports and MRN Radio both after the race, quote, "We reviewed that. We looked at it. Obviously, the 11 was the control vehicle. It was awful close, but we deemed it to be a good restart." Okay.
Here we go again.
Yeah. Geico restart zone's a fairly well delineated, defined area of the track. Am I wrong?
You are not incorrect.
Single red stripe on the inside and the outside wall denotes the beginning of it.
With a line across the track.
Double red lines on the inside and outside wall delineates the end of the restart zone. And there's a big blue stripe along the wall, both inside and outside, that reads Geico Restart Zone, that tells you anywhere within that area you can hit the loud pedal, right? Am I wrong? Where am I wrong?
Ding.
Okay. 11 cars the control vehicle. Elton Sawyer admits that. If Logano is laying back, and let's take Hamlin at his word and say Truex is indeed starting to go, quote unquote, a couple of miles an hour faster than me. But I understand you're shaking your head. I get it. But I'm going to say, let's take Hamlin at his word. You're the control vehicle. You can wait.
You wait, and if Truex is rolling, which he was not, you wait, you let him jump, he gets busted.
Yeah.
That's how you play the mind game, or how you're playing poker on the front row, as the old saying goes. And you're playing poker with him.
And option number 2 in him talking about Joey Logano. Joey Logano laying back. He's waiting to make a run.
Yeah.
Watch him as he starts to close in on you, then has to check up because you haven't gone yet as the control vehicle, and then hit the loud pedal.
Yep.
You got an entire area between one red stripe and 2 red stripes on a wall with a stripe all along the track.
Yep.
That tells you as the control vehicle can go anywhere in that line.
Yep.
Not before it, not after it.
Correct.
Anywhere in there.
Correct.
Again, if you'd like to have more on this, yeah, we talked about it a lot more during Crossed Flags, which dropped on Tuesday. Go look for Crossed Flags. You'll be able to check it out. Now, that being said, let's go the quick summary here, because you said you listened to the Dale Jr. Download podcast. You said what on Tuesday, and what did Dale say?
I said on Tuesday that this rule is in clear black and white. It's not in gray. It's black and white. If that car, the control car, launches, and that's the term I'm going to use, launches, before the first stripe to signify the restart zone, that is a clear jump. Clear as day. Clear, and it's not clear as mud. It's clear as day. He said on the Dale Jr. Download, this rule is black and white. No other ifs, ands, or buts. It's black and white.
Sounds familiar. I'll say this, and I don't know. I didn't look it up, and I should have maybe taken the time to look it up, but I didn't. But I know this because I've done short track stuff. I mean, I worked out at Birmingham International Raceway. You've raced short tracks all around the Southeast.
Yep.
You've seen this, and you talked about it, that you have been in the situation where you where you have been involved, whether you were the control car or not. You've been involved in a situation where you or somebody else jumped the restart. And they waved the restart off, correct?
Correct.
Does NASCAR have the opportunity to do a wave off and re-rack the field and do it again? Or do they just go automatic penalty?
My opinion, they should go back grassroots, old school, if you ask me. Jump to restart, that's your one warning. You re-rack, reload.
Yeah.
You jump twice.
You wave off the restart, you re-rack them, you warn the control car, in this case Denny Hamlin, and say, do it again, you're going to the back of the lead lap, right? That's the penalty? Back of the lead lap? End of the lead lap?
At the end of the race, it should have been last car on the lead lap, correct?
Okay.
Should have been.
All right.
But grassroots style, you go one restart, that's your warning. You jump twice, you lose your starting spot. You either go back a row or you go to the tail end of the line.
Okay.
I've been in a situation.
I can see either one. That'd be fine.
I've been in a situation to where, I'm the outside. I was the outside pole sitter for the race. And lead car is constantly, clearly jumping. And I'm waiting, and I'm using my peripheral vision. I'm watching straight. But when I would do front row starts, and I'm the outside pole sitter, I'm using my peripheral vision. I'm keeping the nose of that car just in this corner of my eye. When I see the nose of the car jump, I'm launching.
Time to go, yeah.
I'm launching. Or I'm listening for throttle response. If I hear the least little, I'm going.
Yeah.
But when we're getting in the middle of turn 4, when our fire zone, they call it the firing zone. Our firing zone, that track was the exit of turn 4. Control car was firing in the middle of turn 4.
So early.
Clear jump.
Sure. Okay.
And so they're back. I got penalized as well. And I'm screaming. I'm going, why am I being penalized and I'm not jumping?
Yeah. You're just reacting to what the control car did.
Yeah. It's apples and oranges in some cases, but 99.9% of the time, well, it should be 100% of the time, but in this case, it's 99.9% of the time, it's black and white.
Yeah. And
simply put.
There's going to be a whole lot of attention paid to that this weekend.
Oh, yeah, for sure, because somebody is going to be waiting on when it's not called.
Yep. Joey Logano, I think, said it best when he appeared on, I think it was Sirius XM satellite radio earlier this week.
Yep.
And he basically said, if that's the way NASCAR wants to call it, fine. Make sure that's the call on lap 5, lap 100, lap 150, lap 200, lap 400, lap 500. If that's the call, fine. As long as I know that's the call, fine. But it better be the call that you did at Martinsville that you did at Richmond. And it better be the call that you did at Martinsville and Richmond, at Texas, and at Talladega, and at Sonoma, and at Charlotte, and at all the other tracks that we got coming up. Otherwise, they best get themselves into the drivers' meetings, all of them, including the one last night, because I hear that there was at least one restart last night that was somewhat questionable. I haven't seen the video. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they need to settle them down and go, hey, listen, this is the deal. From this point on, here's the deal. Red stripe. Go before it. No. Any question of it? No. Red stripe to red stripe, where the blue is on the walls. That's it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, make sure it's consistent. If you're going to do it for one, do it for all. If you can do it one track, do it at every track. That's all we ask. We talked about silly season already kind of beginning, and we're going to get to that in Formula One coming in a little bit, because the Lewis Hamilton situation obviously just threw everything up in the air. But charters are still a major issue when it comes to the Cup Series, because they're expensive. And we're getting rumors about teams selling. We'll detail that next.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
show. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John not with us this weekend. He promises he'll be back next week as his schedule should allow him to do that. Now, silly season encompasses a whole lot of things, and obviously it talks a whole lot about the drivers switching from this team to that team, and that's really what it's based upon. But in NASCAR, with especially the charter situation that we have, it has added a little bit of an extra wrinkle into things. And think about what we saw from Spire Motorsports last year, where they bought, well, half the planet. They bought a third charter for the Cup Series operation, and they bought the entire Kyle Busch Motorsports Truck Series team. Well, charters are now becoming this very, very prized possession because according to reports, which have not been confirmed, Spire paid upwards of about $40 million for that charter that they got from Live Fast Motorsports.
Yep.
That's pretty serious cash. There ain't no doubt about it.
Yep.
So with that said, stop us if you've heard this rumor before. Stewart-Haas Racing is considering selling at least one of their charters. I pause for effect here because, well, yeah, this was a rumor that began to crop up,
2 years ago at least.
Yeah, and reared its ugly head pretty big about 6 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not even that long.
Yep.
Stewart himself ended up stomping on it, said that it wasn't going to happen. Well, here comes round, 2 at least, maybe 3 or 4. Rumor popping up again this weekend. Several teams reported to have interest if indeed Stewart-Haas Racing sells one or more charters. And I get that. I mean, here's the thing. And it doesn't matter whether it's Stewart-Haas Racing or Hendrick Motorsports or Richard Childress Racing or Team Penske or RFK Racing or Spire Motorsports or whoever might be, quote-unquote, considering selling a charter. If you're interested in buying one, sure, you're going to be interested. Trackhouse Racing, they got 3 potential full-time racers, but only 2 charters. You got 2311 Racing, which partial owner, co-owner Denny Hamlin himself said that at some point in time before he hangs up his helmet, he'd like to race for his own team. So that's a viable candidate. There's Legacy Motor Club. They could use a third charter to ensure the 84 would make all of their starts regardless of drivers and then maybe make it a full-time car, even if it was a star car. And, of course, there's the team that continues to make noise about joining the Cup Series, Junior Motorsports. We'll come back to that. Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal reported this week that with the losses of Eric Almirola and 2014 Cup champion Kevin Harvick, the organization lost big-time sponsors, and they did. They lost the likes of Anheuser-Busch. They lost Hunt Brothers Pizza. They lost Smithfield Foods. Busch went over to Trackhouse Racing. They are now with Busch Light, the sponsor of Ross Chastain. Hunt Brothers Pizza moved to the 22. Smithfield Foods is out of NASCAR. However, Stern said something that kind of blew my mind. The team might be hurting for cash flow a little. No. Noah Gragson's walked into the 10 car. He's brought in his regular longtime sponsors like Bass Pro Shops, which marks a return for Bass Pro Shops to SHR, along with Black Rifle Coffee Company, and he's got a couple others that are going on there as well. Sonny D has become quite prominent on the Josh Berry number 4 car, amongst others.
Ranger Boats.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it.
Here's one little kicker that I don't think a lot of people understand just yet. What's that one little company that made their little? I don't think it'd be little. That company that made their appearance on Josh Berry's car at COTA that is now making their appearance on the 10 car this weekend. That would be Overstock.com.
Yep.
Would you like to know who now has controlling interest in majority ownership of Overstock.com? Does the name Marcus Lemonis ring a bell?
If you're sitting there trying to figure it out, think Camping World.
That's one individual on the face of this earth that is not hurting for money and will throw money at you to support something.
Now, let me take you back to a quote from Tony Stewart in February. Quote, "We're going to have to get some races into it," talking about the 2024 season. "But if we're not having the results we're looking for, we're going to make some major changes." So everybody knows that, everybody understands that. And it's those guys at SHR to take what we have and make it better. we need to see the needle moving in the right direction and make progress. Now, everybody on the planet effectively, including us here on this show, took that as Smoke saying, if I don't see improvement in the team from 2023, I'll be willing to make personnel changes that quickly. Now, apparently, we have this thought that he was warning that I'll pare down the size of the team. Smoke's being quiet right now.
Yeah.
And I say right now because he's set to run a top fueler. He's got to contest the Winter Nationals finals and then do the Arizona Nationals all weekend long.
Yep.
Okay? So he's got that to deal with, first and foremost. But I don't know when to expect an answer. And here's the reason why. We're getting into an area where these 4 SHR cars seem to be waking up, even if it's just a little bit. But look at what happened. Look at what they did last weekend at Richmond. Martinsville's a little bit of a different animal, but we know that Josh Berry's good on short tracks. We know Noah Gregson's good on short tracks. We know Ryan Preece is good on short tracks. Chase Briscoe, his win in the Cup Series, correct me if I'm wrong, came on a short track.
Yeah. Phoenix, I would call Phoenix a short track.
Okay. These guys are pretty good in this particular area right here. And I'm hearing a whole lot of people who are looking at more than one Stewart-Haas Racing driver as doing very, very well this weekend.
If not all 4 combined.
Okay. While, yes, they haven't hit victory lane, didn't hit it at all in 2023, and they had a Cup Series champion who's a surefire Hall of Famer, and they had Eric Almirola, who's a long-term veteran there.
Yeah.
They didn't hit victory lane last year either.
Nope.
But the average performance overall of all 4 cars does seem to be trending in the right direction.
That's what I was about to say. It's not going this way. It's not this way. It's not this way.
Yeah.
It's this way. Gradual climb.
But
gradual climbs are better than no climb at all.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I would rather see that gradual climb because that's solid, consistent, steady, as opposed to you're doing this, you're flat and level for 5 or 6 races, and then all of a sudden, boom, 90 degrees up. Well, guess what happens on 90 degrees up? You're going to lose that momentum really, really quick, and you're either going to go back to plateauing or you start doing a 180 and you start going down again.
Stall, yeah.
I would, and if I'm Gene Haas and or Tony Stewart, Greg Zipadelli, anybody that's up in the SHR campus up there in North Carolina, I'm happy with the fact that I'm seeing gradual, steady improvement over all 4 cars as we get a little bit further and further into this year.
Yep.
Again, I'm not going to expect an answer anytime too soon, not from Smoke, certainly not from Gene Haas. Gene Haas has his own situation to deal with Haas F1, which we're going to get back to in a little while anyway. But we have been hearing these rumors, and I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. It is a rumor, okay? But there is a friendship situation that is pretty heavily involved between one Tony Stewart and one Dale Earnhardt Jr. It's not maybe necessarily the friendship that we knew of when Kevin Harvick announced a year and a half early, basically, that he was leaving Richard Childress Racing, and we here on this show said, oh, Harvick's leaving Richard Childress Racing. He and Tony Stewart are good friends. Bet you he's going to Stewart-Haas Racing. We called that 4 or 5 months before it was ever announced. Saw it coming a mile away. But Junior and Smoke are pretty good friends. Junior's already noted that it's very, very difficult to get into the Cup Series. You see where I'm going with this?
Mm-hmm.
Could he buy into Stewart-Haas Racing?
Mm-hmm. Considering that Ford's contract is up at the end of the year with Stewart-Haas, And it's apparent that Ford is not putting their resources into Stewart-Haas.
It seems for all intents and purposes that Ford has effectively punted on the idea of Stewart-Haas Racing coming back to the Ford camp for 2025.
Yeah, because when an overall week-to-week performance front row has surpassed Stewart-Haas, yeah, there's your flag flying on the flagpole.
And I get it. Stewart-Haas would go from being a big fish in the Ford pond, because they are a big name in the Ford pond, to being certainly a smaller fish than Hendrick Motorsports. The biggest fish in the Chevrolet pond is by far and away Hendrick Motorsports.
Yep.
We all know that. But do you honestly believe that Chevrolet is going to sit there and say, oh, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is part of your team? Meh, whatever. If you're good, you're good. If you're not, you're not.
Yep.
Nope. Again, rumor. We admit it flat out. It's a rumor. Could it happen? Yes. Might it not happen? Absolutely. That's why we're here, though. We'll keep you updated. Either way, the organization does have sponsors that have been there for a long time. Mobil One being one of those, and we're going to show you a pretty interesting looking car here. It's not as good looking as the dragster that Tony Stewart ran not that long ago, but it is a pretty good looking car. Mobil One celebrating their 50th year. We talked about that. They ran a special Top Fuel run, and Smoke was running a special fire suit that had a lot of black with a bit of gold highlight on it. This one, kind of the opposite. This one is a whole lot of gold with black on it. You can see it on CRN Live on YouTube right now, courtesy of Stewart-Haas Racing. The plan right now, at least, is to run this car one time this weekend at Martinsville. I don't know. I might be tempted to run this more than once.
I would. I'd run it one race like this and then reverse it for the next.
There you go. Yeah.
Primary black and the other logo's gold.
Yep. Hopefully that will make a comeback before the end of the year. So we'll keep an eye on those things and let you know. But again, truth be told, as we look at what's going on over at Stewart-Haas Racing, I'm not seeing monetary problems. I'm not seeing problems with sponsorship. I think you can pretty much throw that out the window. That's not the issue. If there's an issue, in my mind, and Smoke, Gene Haas, Greg Zipadelli all would sit there and think of dropping from, I'll just say one, from a 4-car operation to a 3-car operation. It's not because of cash flow in my mind. It's because you want to pare down on the personnel to concentrate the personnel that you have on making sure that the 3 cars you have are all really, really good instead of having 4 cars out there and one might be really good and then you got 3 mediocre. That's what we saw last year.
Right.
But I don't know as that's really the answer either, because we see so many teams that are out there that are 4-car operations, Hendrick Motorsports being one of them, Joe Gibbs Racing is obviously another one, where they have 4 cars and all 4 of them are good. We know it can be done. We know that the personnel's out there.
Right.
And if you don't feel like you got the right personnel and you don't feel like that personnel that you have currently can be trained up into becoming that Hendrick, Joe Gibbs Racing kind of level, then you go out and you do what everyone else is trying to do at the same place. You try and find the best people that you can find and hire them away.
That you do.
I don't know.
Reload.
We'll keep up on it, as we always do. Speaking of Richard Childress Racing, a couple of bits of news out of there. Speaking of lack of performance, they got a situation over there with a car that's experiencing a lack of performance, and there are a whole lot of people out there that are fans of this particular number that aren't very happy about that. So they made a pretty big change. Talk about that, and we'll talk about a new sponsor for Kyle Busch this year. Well, it's a new old sponsor.
Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back in. Steve West, Matt Nicholson with you here this weekend. And producer John is checking us out. I'm not sure whether it's his feed or whether it's us. So if you got a problem with your feed on CRN Live on YouTube, let us know. But so far, nobody said anything. I'll just put it that way. All right. To Richard Childress Racing. And they've got a situation going on here where one of their two Cup Series cars, specifically the three of Austin Dillon, is not doing well at all. So Dillon's going to get a new crew chief, but it is one he's familiar with. Justin Alexander's been reappointed to become his new crew chief / old crew chief, returning on the famed three car. Alexander replacing Keith Rodden. Rodden's been put in the role of Dillon's crew chief for 2023, but lasted just more than a year. And, well, we didn't really see a whole lot out of the three car last year. Let's face it. We have seen practically nothing out of the three car so far this year. Alexander's return to the role of Dillon's crew chief marks the third time that he's been Dillon's crew chief. The first time was for the 2017 and 2018 seasons. Then he did it again from 2020 through 2022. He's been really with RCR practically that whole time, even when he wasn't the crew chief. In this particular case, he moves back into the role of crew chief from the RCR competition director. It is Alexander who led Dillon to his two biggest wins, 2017's Coca-Cola 600 and the 2018 Daytona 500, when he ran through Eric Almirola to get it. I often have to wonder, because we talk about long-term relationships between crew chief and driver. I mean, we're just talking about Tony Stewart. His crew chief for his entire time when he was Joe Gibbs Racing is Greg Zipadelli, who's now the competition director at Stewart-Haas Racing. Do we have to mention Jimmy Johnson and that guy who went into the Hall of Fame with him, Chad Knaus?
I would say so.
If you and the crew chief are having success and the crew chief isn't leaving the organization and the driver isn't leaving the organization, why are you splitting them apart?
I don't think the problem is the crew chief. I think the problem is the driver sitting in the seat.
And I would agree with that, because we can tell that Richard Childress Racing isn't building bad cars. Go to the 8 car and look at what Kyle Busch has been able to do. He came in last year and won 3 races within the blink of an eye. And he's doing very well so far this year, even though he hasn't visited Victory Lane.
He's had just a string of bad luck. It's a luck factor with him this year so far.
Well, yeah, and that'll get turned around.
But, yeah, you can change luck quick.
But when you're talking about Kyle Busch sitting up there basically in the top 10, whereas Austin Dillon's languishing at around 30th, it's not a problem with the cars. The cars are fine.
Your telltale sign is when they end up putting a third car on the track. And if said third car is outrunning the primary flagship car, there is your problem.
We'll get back to that, because they're going to put a third car out on the track here. They just announced that. But first, that other RCR car, the 8 of Kyle Busch, longtime RCR sponsor Lucas Oil, will be expanding their partnership by signing on for multiple races to be a primary sponsor of the two-time Cup Champions efforts this year. The first being this weekend in Martinsville. You can see what the car looked like last year. I'm sure it's probably not going to be vastly different this year, but you can see it on CRN Live on YouTube thanks to Richard Childress Racing. We appreciate that. Hendrick Motorsports. I think I got a picture of this too. If I didn't, I apologize.
You did?
They showed off their 4 Cup Series cars that are set to run this weekend in Martinsville. Now, 4 special paint schemes is pretty big when we're not talking Darlington and the throwback weekend, right? Well, they're all sporting a legendary team color, which they term as ruby red. That was the color that was on the car at Martinsville 40 years ago when Jeff Bodine got that win at Martinsville, the one that's credited with basically saving the team that was just about to be done racing. You can see the 4 of them live on CRN, live on YouTube right now, thanks to Hendrick Motorsports. And it's a good look. I like that ruby red. How do you know why I like that? If you went into the parking lot and looked at the 2 cars that are in the parking lot, the one that's quote-unquote ruby red or close to it, it's mine. I like the color. It's a good color. A dark red looks good on a car, in my mind. Maybe not yours, but it does in my mind. These are 4 good-looking cars right there.
It's not bad.
And, again, we've noted this is the 40th anniversary of Hendrick Motorsports, but they were that close They were that close
If I had
to saying, you know what, we can't afford to do this anymore.
If I had to pick the one overall, the best looking one of all the four is probably going to be the 5.
See, I was going between the 5 and the 9. I was looking in that same area with you.
I think the 5.
Yeah, I could see that.
24 is a little bit too, the orange and the red clash a little bit too much.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, either way, it's a good looking car. And then there's this. Didn't we already talk about Denny Hamlin?
A little bit.
Well, let's talk about him again, shall we? And we'll spend the rest of this particular hour talking about this. Because a lot of people love to get into arguments on social media. And there's a lot of people out there that we here on this show and on our podcast, Cross Flags, have basically accused people of being keyboard warriors. And what do we mean by that? Keyboard warriors are the kind of people that are going to sit there and they're going to say something on social media to you or about you that if they were to be face-to-face with you in real life, they wouldn't dream of uttering. So Denny Hamlin, again, already proving himself to be a divisive personality in the NASCAR world. I mean, heck, if you want any proof of that, be at a track for pre-race driver introductions, those ones that are not shown on television, okay? We're going to hear it at Talladega. We heard it at Atlanta. We heard it last year when we were at Bristol, okay? Denny Hamlin gets introduced. There's a heck of a lot of boos out there. More than what I had ever heard, say, 3-4 years ago.
I mean, here,
as recently as that.
Here of recent, the most boos have been rained down. Let's word it that way. I would say within the last 2 years, let's say it that way. The most boos that rained down at the track is arguably when they call out the driver of the 23.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
I could safely say in full confidence that's not the case no more.
No. It firmly belongs in the 11 camp. He has taken the mantle of the black hat that used to be worn by Kyle Busch, was momentarily worn by Bubba Wallace, and it's now firmly on the head of one Denny Hamlin. But he decided to take it to another level on Thursday night, noting a problem with the new pavement at Sonoma Raceway. I think we got a picture of that, too.
Yep.
And not only did he put the picture up on social media, he attacked Speedway Motorsports Incorporated CEO Marcus Smith on social media, which started a back and forth that seemed to have some anger behind it. Now, showing the picture that we're going to show you right now on CRN Live on YouTube, which is courtesy of Speedway Motorsports Incorporated themselves. They're the ones that said, basically, we've got a problem, we're going to fix it. Now, looking at that situation, can you figure out what the heck is going on? I mean, it does seem a rather thin layer of asphalt that they laid down, but that's not terrifically unusual.
It seems to me, by me just looking at this, first glance, one, it seems to me that the top layer that should have been put on did not get put on. That's an awfully thin layer.
Yeah.
Because typically, I think your asphalt layers are at least 6 inches.
Okay.
The top layer apparently didn't get put on, one. Two, it could be a combination of top layer not getting put on and that section of the asphalt not curing properly.
Yeah. There's a lot of different aspects that are involved in it. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah, it's a lot of factors because you could see right there in that hole, that's where they milled the old asphalt down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for that matter, I can tell you right now, they just started paving a section of I-65 from Homewood going down to Hoover in the Birmingham area that I drive every single day. I mean, it is freshly paved, and I can tell you right now, it's got faults to it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're all human. We all make mistakes. They'll go out, they'll fix it. But Hamlin couldn't resist, so he posts up, quote, "When paving on a budget goes wrong, NWB will be next." He referred to the repaving job that was done this offseason at North Wilkesboro Speedway. Well, Marcus Smith saw that, and he took it personally. He responded, quote, "This is a great post from somebody who doesn't know all the information. Ignorance on display for the world to see." And yeah, I can see that, because in that post, where they initially posted it and said, we've got a situation here, nobody knows, except for maybe the guys at Speedway Motorsports Incorporated that are out there on site at Sonoma. They're the ones that know the full story. Marcus Smith probably got briefed on it. Nobody else knows it. So why are you commenting on something that you don't know that much about, right?
It looks to me in that section of the track that's into is going into turn 11 where it's a high braking zone.
Mm-hmm.
What it looks like.
It does.
And the high braking zone is going to cause a lot of downforce and pressure on that asphalt.
You don't want it coming up.
That could, let's just use it as I'm going to say it. It could inadvertently cause it to pull.
Sure. Yep. You don't want it coming up there. I get it. Now, Smith, again, from somebody who doesn't know all the information, ignorance on display for the world to see, then he added an out for Denny Hamlin if Denny Hamlin wanted to take it. Smith said, quote, "I will delete this tweet when Denny Hamlin sends me a direct text or gives me a call directly to ask why this is happening." So there's the opportunity to learn. Hamlin didn't take the out. Instead, he turned up the heat on social media. He replied, quote, "You don't need to delete. We see your reconfig record." Now, what is he referring to? We can talk Bristol, which is gone through its situations and being reconfigured over the course of years, but Marcus isn't the one that's solely responsible for that.
I saw somebody, let me go find it. Seems somebody shared a full list of examples of what he could be talking about. And I've got it right here.
All right. Atlanta, I'm sure, is there.
You've got starting from top to bottom and long and furthest away to most recent.
Okay.
All right, you got Charlotte 2005, the levigating, where they levigated the surface and repaved.
Mm-hmm.
And it got everything out of whack. Taking Bristol from 36 degrees, full 36 degrees down to progressive banking.
Right.
The Kentucky repaving configuration.
And now we're not even racing at Kentucky.
Not even racing at Kentucky. You got the Texas repaving configuration, which absolutely threw Texas into another zip code of what the heck are you doing?
Yeah, it's weird because if you look at turns 1 and 2, they're a different banking than turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, 1 and 2 is way flatter, and 3 and 4
it is kind of whacked out, I'll admit.
You got Atlanta, which Atlanta's proving to be successful so far.
Yeah. Was it controversial when they did it and turned it into using speedway rules like Talladega and Daytona? Sure. But we've been there a couple of times, and I got to say, I like the racing there. I like it now even better than what I did before.
And then, as you said, Bristol dirt, and then now the issues with Sonoma.
Yeah. So Smith, unfortunately, again takes the bait. But he seemed calm at this time. Smith replies, quote, "Yes, we take risks. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. We've seen your attempt at the championship as well. When you have the chance, maybe you could give me some golf tips." Now, if he had just left it as, yes, we take risks, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, I could have excused that. Then he starts getting a little bit snippy, I guess might be the best word for it.
This one right here was a little bit more personal, if you ask me, and that's where it crossed the line.
Yeah, we went from Smith being snippy to Hamlin getting downright personal.
Yeah.
Hamlin replied, quote, "Here's your tip. Let someone else run your business before you blow everything your dad gave you."
Oop.
That's going to get my back up.
Ooh.
Okay, you want to come after me, that's one thing. You come after my dad, that's another.
Yeah.
And it got under Smith's skin, too. Smith replied, quote, "So proud of my dad, Hall of Famer. If he had a Twitter account, I don't think his comment would be family friendly." So, and unfortunately, he didn't leave it there. He again turned up the wick on the heat. Smith ended that tweet by saying, quote, "So listen here, almost NASCAR champion. You keep working at it, and one day you're going to get a big trophy. Thanks for the tip." That was it. Until Friday, yesterday, as we air live. And Smith apparently had common sense smack him over the head during the night. He backed off, posted this, quote, "Following up on my previous posts, I take a lot of pride in the dedication and hard work of our teammates put forth to make NASCAR the very best it can be. I shouldn't let social media conversations get personal, so I deleted those posts. Denny Hamlin is a passionate driver and team owner, and I'm truly looking forward to seeing him drive for a championship this year. Our team is working hard to fix some pavement issues at Sonoma, and we will get it right. Let's keep the positive momentum going in 2024. That was the right thing to do. Hamlin, at least, was able to go back and agree by saying, quote, in response, "I'll co-sign this. I'll definitely take responsibility for my part in it. It got more personal than it should have, for sure." You can't tell me that Denny Hamlin and Marcus Smith have not come across each other in the times that NASCAR runs on SMI-owned tracks. You can't.
Several.
Do they have that bad of a personal relationship to where this turned vitriolic that quickly?
Well, it's just, I don't know. It's puzzling. It's crazy. But, but when you've got somebody as outspoken as Denny Hamlin is, taking a shot at something and it just catches said person wrong, said person's going to load their gun and fire shots back. I think this is one of them situations. But when you cross the line and you bring the late Bruton Smith into it, yeah, he had a reason to get really, really, really hot right there.
Yeah.
He had full reason. So, I don't know. I think it's water under the bridge now, and just let it go and be done with it, and everybody be human and go on about your day.
At some point in time, maybe they get together and they talk it out.
Yeah, I'm sure they will, if they already haven't.
Yeah.
But closing the whole day out, Denny Hamlin puts on social media, "Hey, again, could somebody come out with a paint scheme or something to take positive light off of something?" You know what one response was somebody put up? A paint scheme of the Geico restart zone.
How appropriate. Denny,
Fantastic.
here's the deal, man. You're a good racer. There ain't no doubt about it. Can't have as many wins as you've got and have competed for as many titles as you've tried to challenge for over the course of time without being a good driver. Somewhere down the line, you lost that filter between brain and mouth, or in this case, between brain and fingertips. Find that filter. Re-engage it.
Championship Racing Network.
Welcome in, making a transition over to Formula One, first with a stop off in MotoGP. I'm going to say this up front. No, we're not going to be adding MotoGP to our regular rundown of series that we cover. But we mentioned them at this time because the commercial rights holders for Formula One, Liberty Media, U.S.-based corporation, they're taking over MotoGP's parent company called Dorna. Under this deal, Liberty has bought out controlling interest in Dorna valued at about $4.5 billion U.S. Now, Liberty has said that very little is going to change. Dorna will remain as a company under its own Liberty Media umbrella. The headquarters for MotoGP will remain in Madrid, Spain. CEO Carmelo Ezpeleta will remain in his chair as the CEO. This is just a money deal, apparently.
Yep.
Liberty's acquired an 86% stake in Dorna. Dorna management retains the remaining 14%. The deal expected to be approved and finalized before 2024 gives way to the new year. Well, that gives them the better part of 8 months. Liberty says that they're paying for their majority stake in Dorna about $3.8 billion in U.S. funds. But that's not the entirety of the story, unfortunately. It's not just that simple. There seems to be a hurdle. Liberty's going to have to get approval from regulators in several countries to get this finished. Britain's first and foremost. See, Dorna Sports was about 40% owned by a company called Bridgepoint Group. It's a privately owned British company. CVC Capital, the company that Liberty Media got Formula One's commercial rights from, had been told back in 2006 that in order for them to buy those commercial rights in Formula One, they needed to sell their stake in Dorna. See the problem? CVC Capital wanted to have Formula One, but needed to get rid of MotoGP's parent company. And then there's also the Canada Pension Plan. The investment board has a 39% stake in Dorna that they acquired in 2012 from Bridgepoint, and their remaining shares, by the way, when the Liberty Media takeover was announced, saw a drop in value of 14%. That is not an insignificant drop in value.
Nope.
So, yeah, they're going to have to get through a couple of countries' approvals before this will get officially signed off on. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. Again, not planning on putting MotoGP as a regular part of our show here, but did find it fairly interesting. Mm-hmm. To Formula One, where McLaren has announced that only a few races into the 2024 season, we're going to be shaking up our technical department. Only a few months after he left Ferrari to go to McLaren as their aerodynamic specialist, David Sanchez has now left McLaren. Okay. CEO Zach Brown announced former Red Bull technical head Rob Marshall, who came to McLaren at about the same time, he will be elevated to the position of chief designer effective immediately. And then he addressed Sanchez's exit. Brown said, quote, following a number of discussions about the job responsibilities, Sanchez decided that the job wasn't for him, tendered his resignation. Brown said that the moves like elevating Marshall are, quote, aimed at further strengthening and evolving the technical model. You go to a particular place thinking, hey, it's going to be great. You might know a couple of people there. Maybe you don't know a couple of people there, but you think, man, this job could be really, really cool. I could get into it. And then you suddenly realize that the job isn't quite exactly what you had planned on. That's what I'm guessing.
Yep.
The fact that they were able to sit down and not pull a Denny Hamlin, Marcus Smith situation and just blast each other publicly. I don't know. What's Sanchez going to do? Well, he released a statement, or said in a statement that was released by McLaren, quote, I am grateful for the opportunity to have been part of this team. While the role we envisioned and had agreed to was not aligned with reality, in other words, what he was expecting, I leave with respect for the leadership, admiration for the dedication of my colleagues, and appreciation for the openness and honesty in which we discussed and arrived at this decision, unquote. See, that's how you go from one job to the next and have somebody go, that's the kind of person I'd like to hire. They didn't take and say, that bridge to McLaren I don't care about anymore, and nuke it.
Yeah.
They left the bridge intact professionally. That's the kind of person I want on my team. Read into that what you will. Williams Well, they went to Australia with 2 cars and no backups. Something that bit him in the butt when Alex Albon crashed in practice session number 1, creating enough damage that Williams said, we can't fix this on site. They made the decision to pull Logan Sargent from the car, put Albon in that ride for the weekend while they sent the chassis all the way back to Britain to get fixed because that's where all the parts were. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. Albon didn't score points in the race. The chassis in question was, like I said, immediately loaded onto a plane, flown back to England for repairs. Team principal James Vole said just before Easter he felt that repairs would be done in time and that they would have the car back for this weekend's race, which is going on in Japan. And yes, it is back in time. That brings us to the picture that you're about to see on CRN Live on YouTube. Thanks to Planet F1 for this picture where you see Sargent jumping out of the car, which has stopped on the track because he crashed it in practice session number 1. Now, lessons are sometimes hard learned, but generally you're supposed to learn from it, right? Williams didn't bring a spare chassis to Japan either. So imagine how much they were all holding their breath and were as blue as the Williams blue that's on the car until they realized we actually can fix it on site. So they'll have 2 cars for tomorrow's race, or tonight's race, as it turns out, as long as they don't crash it in qualifying or FP3.
You're a Formula 1 team. You don't bring enough parts and pieces to racetracks to fix said cars if something happens. You don't need to be on the F1 grid.
Williams ain't the only one. Shall I present to you Alpine? They've had a horrible start to 2024, and they added to it despite seeing what Williams went through in Australia and then watching Williams hold their collective breath and turn blue in the face until they noted that they could fix it because they don't have a spare chassis in Japan. Alpine said we don't have a spare chassis in Japan either. And then actually admitted they don't have one back at the headquarters either.
Whoa, 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 whoa. We're putting $145 million per team. That is not per 2 cars, per 1 car.
Uh-huh.
And you can't get a backup car?
They don't have a spare chassis in Japan or in Britain at the headquarters.
You are putting...
Or France or wherever their headquarters are.
$145 million into a car and you don't have a backup.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a break. Hey, Alpine, why don't you go hit up Taylor's boyfriend that's an investor in your team and get him to foot the bill for a new chassis?
Yeah,
because
between Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Ryan Reynolds, one would think that they might be able to get you one.
He'd go, hey Taylor, can I borrow $100 million to buy a car? Yeah, sure, honey. Here you go. $100 million. Hey, Laurent Rossi, here you go. Here's the money.
Sure.
Give me a break.
Oh, but wait, it gets better. They are working on one right now. Alpine says that it should be ready for their next race in China. Williams, on the other hand, says that they're working on a spare that's not currently in their headquarters right now, and it won't be ready to be raced until Miami at the earliest.
That's Mother's Day weekend. That's a month. You mean to tell me you don't have the people or the resources? If I can be and have my hands on a project, let's call it a project, and I can be on hand to help change. Let me rephrase this. To basically swap engines from one dirt late model to the other. Take the mother motor that was in the car, put it in the backup car, and have both running within 30 minutes? And you mean to tell me you don't have the personnel to get a backup car built and rolling within a week? Give me a break.
I have openly here on this show admitted that I am rooting for Haas F1 to survive and succeed in Formula One. In that way, I kind of take the media hat off and I put on a bias hat. I want to see them succeed. I do. But the truth of the matter is really since Haas F1 has come into Formula One, they have been run on a shoestring budget. They've been run on the cheap. And it's not because Gene Haas is broke.
No.
Gene Haas is rolling in money. We'll get back to that in a minute.
He probably sleeps in a bed of money.
Yeah. I mean, Gene Haas is not hurting for money. But there's a reason why Gene Haas is not hurting for money. Gene Haas has made some very wise business decisions over the course of time,
Sure.
and those wise business decisions have paid off.
Sure.
So he's not going to go in and throw good money after bad.
No.
But again, Haas F1 has been run on a bare bones budget, and it has shown. Like punting on an entire year just a couple of years ago, saying, well, we're just going to put all of our efforts towards next year because we think we got a better chassis, and, you know, why would we mess with it, right? Even Haas F1 has a spare chassis or two available if they have a major problem with Nico Hülkenberg or Kevin Magnussen. And they're not as well funded parent company-wise, in my mind, as Doralton Capital is for Williams, or as Alpine is, because they're a subsidiary of Renault, which is part of the PSA Auto Group, which is not a small automotive group venture based in France. This is poor planning.
Very.
And it has come back and bitten them on the butt hard. In fact, you might have a chunk missing out of your butt. Pirelli's got a little bit of a problem, too. It's one that they say that they want to talk to both the FIA and Formula One about. This goes back to the second practice that happened Friday for the Japanese Grand Prix. And it reveals a problem with the new tire allocation rules when it comes to wet weather tires specifically. Now, Formula One in Japan is often beset with rain, especially when it was late in the year like it used to be. But now, even early in the year, apparently it's still kind of having rain problems. And that was the case as second practice session began. By the time it was over, only 13 cars put tires on the track out of 20. Less than half of those actually posted a time because of tire allocation. So, like I said, Pirelli's asking for a meeting with officials from both Formula One and the FIA about the new for 2024 rules about how wet weather tires get set out to the teams. And it left those teams reluctant to go out because they didn't want to use one of those sets that they might need later on in the weekend, just in case, right? So while the timer was ticking down and nobody was on the track, the rain stopped. The track started to actually dry out. And again, with less than 10 minutes to go, a few teams put racing slicks on. They went out onto the Suzuka course finally and put some times, but it left them ruining this. Seven-time champion Lewis Hamilton was one of those who spoke about it, said, quote, "It is a shame we didn't get that session in. They have changed the tire rule, so therefore nobody goes out and runs on the intermediate wet tires. It just doesn't make sense, really, but there you go." Now, what he's referring to is this new rule that they put into place for 2024, where it was supposed to increase the allocation of wet weather tires with teams that are allowed one more set of full wet and one more set of intermediate wet weather tires, 3 and 5 respectively, but that was for race conditions. That new rule eliminated an extra set for practice sessions. And that resulted in the situation we got for the practice session number 2. In prior years, FIA and F1 rules had allowed for an extra set to be allocated if race stewards determined that any specific practice session was going to be held in wet conditions. How wet doesn't matter. Again, you've got full wet weather tires, you've got intermediate wet weather tires. You can run either one. That portion of the rule, chucked. Pirelli chief engineer Simone Barra said that it was something that the tire maker didn't have any say in and noted, quote, "It was voted on by all the teams together with the FIA and F1. It is something that we will discuss further with the FIA and with the teams to try and find a way to make them be able to run them in practice. This was not our decision in the end. but in the next weeks, it will be a topic for discussion. Actions have reactions, or equal and opposite actions, however you wish to put it.
Yep.
In this case, they go through the process of saying, hey, we might be able to get extra sets for racing. Forgot about practice there, didn't you?
Huh?
Oops. Time to go fix it. Remember us just talking just a moment ago about Haas F1 and their financial situation? Gunther Steiner continues to talk. He hasn't nuked that bridge just yet, but I think he's aiming his nuclear weapons at it because he just keeps talking. Here's the thing. This one might actually have turned out to be addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little Haas F1 when we come back.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network.
If you listen carefully, you'll hear the roads of Alabama calling. Tony Sarah Ford has your answer. Serving you for over 40 years with one of the largest Ford and pre-owned inventories in the state and the Sarah Promise. Our best deal when you buy or trade, a 72-hour exchange policy, a no-hassle trade-in promise. Written offers are good for 7 days. And our best service promise. Our factory-certified technicians help keep your vehicle running smoothly. That's why Alabama can be yours to discover in a new vehicle from Tony Sarah Ford in Sylacauga.
Whether you're locked out, want to change your locks, need automotive keys, or have a locksmith emergency, Stevens & Sons Locksmith is your answer. Since 1975, Stevens & Sons Lock...
Racing Network.
Welcome back. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Steve West along with Matt Nicholson here. Producer John going to be back with us next weekend as his schedule does allow. We were talking a bit ago about Haas F1. And former Haas F1 team principal Gunther Steiner got to talking this week, said one of the reasons for his departure from the team was a disagreement between himself and team owner Gene Haas about what he, Gunther, feels like is a lack of investment in the organization by Gene Haas. Now, we just talked about that during the last segment in the fact that since they came in 8 years ago, they have been run on a shoestring budget. Now, they've done a lot with that shoestring budget. I mean, even up to and including a fifth place finish in the championship points what was that, 18? 19? I forget which one.
I think so, yeah.
One of those two. Okay? So they have done a lot with a little in the past. But then again, you go from that 5th place team to where effectively you're a cellar dweller over the last 3-4 seasons, including saying, you know what? We're not even really trying this year. We're looking ahead at all the rules for next year. We're just going to work on everything chassis and get all the equipment ready for next year. And this year, whatever, it'll be a wash, even though we have 2 rookies and we're effectively going to blow their confidence by saying you got no chance at scoring a championship point, much less getting a win.
Pretty much.
So I get where Gunther Steiner could be a little bit upset. Okay, but again, your track record had proven up until that point you were able to do something with very little and be successful at it. And when Steiner said those words this week, his replacement, Io Komatsu, said Steiner effectively is wrong, or at least to a certain extent. Komatsu told media in Japan when they arrived there, quote, "I got appointed officially on January the 10th. My message from Gene from day one was absolutely clear. He said he's got money. He will invest it. But we, the team, have to show him that we can use the money responsibly and efficiently." What did I just say earlier? There's a reason he's a billionaire.
Yep.
Komatsu basically said the same thing. He doesn't want to see waste. There's a reason he's a billionaire. He doesn't like to waste money. Now, here's the deal. Haas F1 has scored points here in the early going this year. Qualifying hasn't been great. I think they were 12th and 18th for tonight's race.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. But again, you can qualify in the back of the pack. If you get up to 10th, 9th, 8th place, that means you're in the championship points. I'm not going to complain that much because that tells me you've got race pace, which is certainly something they didn't have last year because they were going through tires because they had a weird downforce issue.
Yeah.
It seems at least to a certain extent they've solved that problem this year, which is a good thing. Gene Haas has admitted that he is ready to put money into the recruiting program at Haas F1.
Right.
Now you think, okay, what do you mean by that? It's not just drivers. Right now he seems pretty happy with Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen. I can understand why. They're 2 veterans who can and have been with other operations in their career in Formula One, and they can tell you, hey, here's what you got going right. Here's what you got going wrong. So it's the personnel behind the scenes. I mean, you think about it. Everyone's kind of trying to yank on Mercedes' chain and Red Bull's chain, and they're trying to grab all those people that have made those 2 organizations such successes over the past, we'll say 15 years.
Right.
And it's the same thing in football, college, pro, doesn't matter. It's the same thing in Major League Baseball. It's the same thing in basketball. It's the same thing in hockey. It's the same thing in every sport on the planet. You get that 1 or 2 organizations, teams, whatever they are, that are highly successful and have been for a decade or so, maybe more. And everyone goes, we want that. So they start plucking people from that organization. Coaches, players, whatever, drivers. Because we want a little bit of that, and we think that they have the ability to do it. Haas F1, Gene Haas specifically, is willing to put money into the recruiting budget so they can go after some of those same guys. Instead of watching them all go to the Alpines and the McLarens and the Saubers and all those other teams, he wants to bring them into Haas F1.
Yep.
That's a good thing. Can this continue? Yeah, it can. Obviously, it can. Question is will it? And I say this again. If you go back and watch this, and go back and watch it very, very carefully. Specifically, find the latest season of Netflix's Formula One Drive to Survive and watch the one episode that is really concentrating on Haas F1. It doesn't really show Gene Haas. It does show Gunther Steiner talking to Gene Haas on numerous occasions. And it does seem like Gene Haas is ready to throw up his hands and quit, which is why he was probably partially, at least, ousted. With that attitude from your leadership, extends down into everybody below him or her.
True.
And if the leader has a bad attitude, everybody underneath him or her has a bad attitude. And if the leader is kind of conceding that we're not going to be able to do anything, everybody under them is going to go, we're not going to be able to do anything. And they quit.
Yes, sir.
This actually, and I like Gunther Steiner. Again, I understand why he's become a superstar. I do. I fully get it. I understand why he's a superstar. He is very open. He's very willing to speak his mind. And I appreciate that about him. But in the end, for Haas F1, this might have been addition by subtraction. By removing Gunther Steiner from this particular organization, Haas F1 might be better off.
Very well could be.
Time will tell.
I agree.
All right, so you're Mercedes. You're Toto Wolff. You know you're losing Lewis Hamilton.
Yep.
You're probably not going to get Max Verstappen. I mean, let's face it. To pull him out of Red Bull, to convince him to leave Red Bull, would take your entire car company and race team. So who else is out there? How about a former 4-time F1 champion? Would you be interested? Can I sell you on that, Mr. Matt Nicholson, a.k.a. Toto Wolff?
Well, I will listen to you. I can't do a Toto Wolff voice today.
Close enough. I like it.
Close enough.
Sebastian Vettel retired at the end of the 2022 season with 4 titles and 53 wins to his credit. But at the age of 36, and after a year plus out, maybe he's rethinking things. He was asked about it by Sky Sports on Wednesday of this week and said, quote, "I retired from Formula One not to come back, but I did say you never know." So I think that still stands. This one might actually be his best chance to come back because despite the fact that he missed the entire 2023 year, looks to miss the entire 2024 season, he does have the knowledge of how to win races and titles, as we noted, and he'd be an attractive option for any team looking for a driver. And again, to be able to replace a 7-time champion with a 4-time champion, you're not really losing a whole lot.
Nope. You're not.
I can't say this is gonna happen, but if I'm Toto Wolff or I'm anybody up in the upper levels, upper echelon of the Mercedes Formula One team, don't you kind of got to look at him? Don't you?
Yeah, you have to.
Don't you have to pick up the phone and give him a call and gauge his interest? And if he gives you any slight hint that says, sure, let's sit down and chat about a potential contract, don't you have to entertain it?
Something, because there's nothing else out there right now.
Not really. I mean, unless you're going to do a straight trade with Ferrari, effectively.
Which, next to Sebastian Vettel, that would make the most logical sense.
To go Carlos Sainz?
Yeah. He's not a bad pick.
No.
He's been the only other person to win a race since in, 3 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, if it's not Red Bull, then it's Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
With, I think, maybe 1 or maybe 2 Charles Leclerc wins. And Charles Leclerc's not going anywhere. We know that.
Yeah,
it's really been all Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez. You know, it's been this little group of people. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. I love watching racing of just about any kind.
Mm-hmm.
But here in the United States of America, we get tired really, really quick of watching the same people win time and time and time again.
Right.
Okay? We go, yay, they won, congratulations. And then 3 championships later, they're like, God, they won again?
Yep.
What the heck?
Yep.
Want to put it in racing terms? Witness Jeff Gordon. Witness Jimmy Johnson. Just saying. Witness Kyle Busch. Want to put it in other sports? Witness the New England Patriots. Witness the Alabama Crimson Tide. Witness whatever college basketball team you want to put here. Okay? They're out there. We go, congratulations on winning a championship. But let's not go 5. then we're going to get sick of you. And it does. And there's a reason for it. It gets a little boring. If I can sit there and go, okay, if Max Verstappen gets the lead coming off of turn number 1 at the start of the race tonight in Japan, he's going to win the race. That's a fairly decent bet. The only reason he didn't win in Australia is because his right rear brake caught on fire. Such a rarity.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hard one to forget, truth be told. I mean, it's not like a random engine blow. That could happen to anybody. Max Verstappen had a right rear brake catch on fire. Never heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
But that gets a little boring.
It does.
We want to see variety. We want to see more options. We want to see more drivers have the ability to win races. Will it happen? I don't know. But it's one of the reasons why Lewis Hamilton's leaving Mercedes to go to Ferrari. He thinks he might have a better chance to go get a win over in Ferrari and race, by the way, for one of, if not the most prestigious team to ever race in Formula One. No disrespect to Red Bull, Ferrari, and everybody else who has or is currently running in Formula One. You have the chance to go race for one of the most prestigious marques of all time. You kind of jump at it, especially if you feel like you have a chance to get the win. That's why Lewis Hamilton's going.
Yeah, just like if my phone rang and it was Rick Hendrick or Chad announced to say, "Hey, mind filling in for the 24 car for me this week?"
Bye.
I will be in my truck headed to Concord within the next 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'd be doing the rest of the show by myself and packing up everything after I got done. And you know what? I'd understand it fully. 110%.
Yep.
If Sebastian Vettel has any thought about coming back and he gets a call from Mercedes, and if I'm Mercedes and I'm thinking I have a chance to get a 4-time champion, I'm making that call. Absolutely. Later today in Martinsville, Virginia, the first 4 drivers up in the Xfinity Series Dash for Cash, going to be going for $100,000, are going to be Chandler Smith, Eric Almirola, the rookie Jesse Love, and Parker Kligerman. Now, you're thinking to yourself, maybe I remember you doing the recap of the race, and those weren't the first 4 finishers of the race. You're right. Remember, this is a program that is only for drivers that are running declared for points in the Xfinity Series this year. So Taylor Gray's not eligible, Corey Himes not eligible, Bubba Pollard's not eligible. They finished 3rd, 4th, and 6th, respectively.
Right.
That's why.
Right.
Now you know. Lap number 173 of 250-lap race at Richmond, Virginia. Dawson Cram was battling Joey Gase last week when Cram got into Gase in turn 1, spun the 35 car out. That caused Gase's car to slam, going backwards, into the outside wall and tore, partially at least, the rear bumper cover off. Well, the caution came out, slowed the field. Gase, very unhappy with Cram, waited for the field to come back around. While he was waiting for the field to come back around, Gase initially was thought to be looking at his car. So the officials let him do it because most drivers, they'll get out of the car, they'll inspect the damage before they get into the safety vehicle and go and get checked out of the infield care center, right?
Yep.
Gase took the opportunity, ripped the rear bumper cover the rest of the way off, walked down the track, saw Dawson Cram coming around, and tossed the rear bumper cover right onto Cram's windshield, where it quickly flew up and over and landed back on the track. You can see him throwing the bumper cover off on CRN Live on YouTube right now, thanks to MSN.com. It was a nice shot, by the way, because it landed square on the hood and partially up on the windshield.
It did.
That was a nice shot.
It did.
There was no immediate penalty from NASCAR for his actions. And here's the thing. Gase actually wasn't even called into NASCAR's hauler to be talked to. But in looking back on it, you kind of came to an understanding this probably is not something that NASCAR is going to sit and just let happen. And sure enough, they didn't. We'll get back to the penalty in a second. Cram declined comment on it after the race. Gase, on the other hand, he was very vocal. Said, quote, "I think him just not having his head screwed on right. I gave the kid his first opportunity in Xfinity Series ever. I know owner Johnny Davis isn't in the business of wrecking race cars, and we definitely are not. Gase runs his own organization. We're a small teams racing hard for the free pass. Apparently he didn't know how to lift. Maybe his throttle stuck. I don't know. Again, Cram decline comment. We don't know what happened.
Hard racing. That's what it was.
Gase found out what his penalty was. And again, for a guy who is a driver owner of your own team, this is not an insignificant fine in the Xfinity Series of $5,000. But for him, no points deduction. NASCAR citing safety rules in the handbook, specifically citing section 8.8.8K. Reads this, quote, a safety violation may be imposed for any action or omission by a competitor or vehicle that creates an unsafe environment or poses a threat to the safety of the competitors as determined by NASCAR.
Walking down the track.
While cars are going around, even if it's at pace speed.
Yeah. And these rules come up from said instance with Tony Stewart on the dirt track. That's where the rules came from everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
But there is some good coming out of it because I've seen some shirts that have been created by Dawson Cram that all the proceeds that are raised from the shirts getting sold go to one of Gase's sponsors, the Donate Life.
Nice.
So
very well done, Dawson. Very well done. I would assume that they've cleared the air since last week.
I would say so.
Now, remember I was talking about Richard Childress Racing here about an hour ago?
Yep.
You said something about if and when Richard Childress Racing puts a third car out onto the track, right?
Here you go.
We're going to put that one to the test because, as it turns out, Richard Childress Racing is indeed going to put a third Cup Series car out onto the track throughout the course of the rest of this year. What are the details of that? Well, as you can tell, it'll involve the Xfinity Series aspect of the team as well, and that's what we'll talk about next on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
Mark your calendars for high-speed fun at the Noble Street Festival. Saturday, April 13th. Witness amateur and professional cycling races. Plus, there'll be live music, food trucks, vendors, and so much more. Bring the littles to the free Sunny King Kid.
off and not as a contender for a race win. Not something we've seen out of Dillon. And you said at that time, we'll see what happens if and when RCR puts a third car out there. Bingo. Here's that third car. If Austin Hill runs a lot more like Kyle Busch than Austin Dillon, I think we have our answer. But I'll be real blunt with you when I say this. I think that's already the case. I think we already do know the answer.
Agreed.
He's going to be a lot more like one than the other.
Fully agree.
If you have to ask me which one of those you're not paying attention as to which one I've been complimenting and which one we have been denigrating. How's that?
You are.
And then this one. Ray Gaulding. I don't know what comes over me. Heat of the moment, drunk, stupid, combination of them all. I don't know. But whatever it is, Ray Gaulding, who's been a part-time driver over the last few seasons, might have a hard time getting another ride this year. He hasn't driven yet this year at all. And to make it worse, he's been arrested in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, because of a misdemeanor domestic violence charge. He was arrested on Tuesday just after 7 a.m., according to police records. Again, the charge listed is a misdemeanor, but no other details were given. He was released about 5 hours later into his father's custody. No bail, but based on two conditions. One, that he appear in court on July 25th. Two, that he has no contact with the victim, who was not named. Thanks to TobyChristie.com for the images of Gaulding that you see right now on CRN Live on YouTube.
You have an issue if you're getting involved in domestic violence at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
You have a problem.
Anger management, substance of some sort, drugs, alcohol, don't know. I don't know. Letting your emotions get the best of you, which again would go back to anger management. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, find it, deal with it.
I know Zane Smith is married to Grace's sister now.
Ooh, yeah.
But I wish, I don't say this much, but the two families that I wish that would get out of motorsports, period, because all they do is just, it's more of a social scene than it is anything else, is the Gauldings and the Deckers.
Now, NASCAR has set precedents in this before, and as they did with similar situations like this in the past, they effectively have a zero tolerance policy, and I agree with this one. I'm not big on zero tolerance policies because generally that tends to lead to zero common sense policies. Like if we catch you in school with an aspirin and you give it to a friend, we'll suspend you for a week. It's an aspirin. It's not like they handed over a fentanyl pill.
True.
Okay, but in this case, I do agree with it. They've suspended him indefinitely, citing NASCAR rulebook section 4.4.d that regards members' code of conduct. So Gaulding's license has been suspended indefinitely pending the outcome of the investigation. Now, Gaulding has been around for a while. He's raced in the upper levels of NASCAR since 2014. He's got 19 trucks, 79 Xfinity, and 60 Cup Series starts. No wins. But he does have 2 second-place finishes, both of those in Xfinity competition, 2019 at Talladega. He matched that again the next year, 2020 at Daytona. Last year, got 11 NASCAR starts, 10 in the Xfinity Series for SS Greenlight Racing, where he got 2 top 10 finishes. He got 1 Cup Series start last year. But, again, doubt seriously he's going to get a start this year.
If ever again.
Maybe not. Remember us talking last week about that chamber that was found underneath the grandstands at North Wilkesboro Speedway?
Uh-huh.
Yep. The famed and historic track still set to host the Craftsman Truck Series and Cup Series for All-Star Race Weekend. So after they did kind of a cursory investigation on it, they started the process of fixing it so it'll be ready for race weekend. You can kind of see the process of that and that picture on CRN Live right now is from the track's official website. Starting on Tuesday, crews from a local construction company started pouring concrete into that noted chamber, which, again, rumored to have been a moonshine cave, at least at some point in time. How old? We don't know. When the crew were inspecting the grandstands, they noted some cracks in it, so they fully investigated by removing about 600 seats from that particular section. Explored it. They opened up that chamber, estimated to be about 700 square feet. Had the basics of what you would need to be a moonshine operation. That, got to admit, it's pretty ingenious. Ain't nobody looking underneath the grandstands at North Wilkesboro Speedway.
Nope.
They're in the process of stabilizing the area around and inside of the chambers. Said they'll work basically from the bottom of the grandstand level up, fix the concrete of the grandstands, put the seats back in place, and be ready to go racing. Again, meanwhile, the origins of the cavern remain a mystery. SMI Senior VP of Operations and Development, Steve Swift, said, quote, "It's hard to say if the folklore and old stories that you constantly hear around here are true, but we are in the heart of what was once moonshining country, so who knows?" And as we noted last week, they had a rather famous next-door neighbor to North Wilkesboro Speedway for a long time who was pretty well known for his moonshining exploits. Does the name Junior Johnson ring a bell?
A little bit.
He was the next-door neighbor in question. I'm not saying that it was Junior Johnson that did it. Just noting that's quite the coincidence, don't you think?
Very, very, very.
Politics aside, whatever you feel about the person/people inhabiting the White House, it's not the point. They did hold the annual White House Easter egg roll. It's always a very popular event for who happens to be inhabiting the president's house. The people's house, really, because it doesn't belong to them. It belongs to us. This year, some 40,000. Yeah, you heard that right. 40,000 children were on hand for the event. And as it turned out, so was Indycar, specifically Aero McLaren driver David Malukas. He was a guest of the White House. He served as an ambassador for Indycar, took the time to visit, took pictures with the kids. Some of the other efforts there for Indycar included hands-on activities for the kids that showed the machinery and the programs that the drivers use to maintain their physical fitness, along with reaction tests and a strength challenge. You've seen that video of that light wall with the buttons where the driver has to hit the button of the corresponding light and do it quickly? That kind of thing.
Yep.
I'm intrigued by those things. But for me, and one of the reasons why I'm in this business that I'm in is because as a kid, not only did I listen to Casey Kasem and think, that'd be a cool job to have. I watched the TV show WKRP in Cincinnati.
Yep.
And whenever I see that reaction test, and producer John, who's watching from his work right now, is probably saying, I know exactly what you're going to say right now. I'm thinking of the WKRP in Cincinnati episode called The Drunk Test, where Venus Flytrap kept getting drunker and slower and eventually walked into Arthur Carlson's office and asked for a hat. And he wanted a hat because the state trooper who was performing the drunk test had a hat. And as he got a fishing hat with a ridiculously long lid, or ridiculously long bill, he walked out of the office and said, "Thanks for the lid, Art." In the meantime, Dr. Johnny Fever, the morning show guy, slow as Christmas, dead sober. Drunk, boom, was on it. Don't try this at home, kids. It's not going to happen in real life. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's what I think of. Every time I ever see video of somebody doing that reaction wall, all I can think of is that particular episode. I don't know why. It's how my brain works. Don't get in there, kids. In addition, there was a sheet that the kids could color in. They handed it out, depicted the safety features of an Indycar. I bet you it was a really, really cool experience overall for Malukas and for the kids. Really, really cool situation. So I'm glad that they were able to go do that. NHRA, again, don't forget that they are doing a twofer this weekend. Hail, not just rain, hail in Fontana, California, caused the NHRA to go, yeah, we can't contest the finals of any of the Mission Foods Drag Racing Series finals for here. So they're going to have to do the finals for the Winter Nationals this weekend, and they're going to have to do the Winter National, the Arizona Nationals, I'm sorry. So, yeah, they got a busy weekend going on out there. So that'll be interesting to pay attention to all weekend long. Yep. Obviously, again, going to be Martinsville, going to be a lot of fun watching the racing on the short track. And Suzuka is hosting Formula One over in Japan. So, yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. And, oh, by the way.
Something I definitely won't be awake for tonight.
No, I'll have to watch a replay. But something else I found out about, thanks to our good friend, Late Model Mark, Talladega Short Track, getting things into action big time this weekend. So it should be a lot of fun. And don't forget those local tracks, folks. Don't forget them. It's where a lot of these drivers that are up at the top levels of IndyCar and NASCAR and all of them, really.
They've turned a lap at.
They all got their starts at places like Talladega Short Track, at places like the late lamented Birmingham International Raceway, and so many other small local tracks all around the area. So go check them out. Do yourself a favor. If you've never looked for a local track in your area, go find out what's in your area, find out what their schedule is, and go check out some racing. Pay attention to those names. You never know. You might hear them again in the future.
You never know what
very near future.
You never know what little diamond may be laying down the street.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
you never know.
And you and I have been there many, many times. It's been a while. I would definitely need to go back and check it out. And am certainly thinking in 2 weeks when we have action going on at the big track at Talladega Superspeedway that I definitely want to get over to Talladega Short Track, because that's, you want to talk about a fun weekend.
That's when the Alabama Gang 100 will be in town with the World of Outlaws K-Slate Model Series.
Yeah.
For, I think the purse change this year, it was 50,000 last year. I think they're running for 35,000 to win this year.
Still not an insignificant amount of money.
There is a substantially high shot that you will see that little late model roll through the gate that's got a 6 on the side of it. And the name over the door will be Kyle Larson.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very high chance he'll be there.
Yep. And here's the thing. You never know who's going to be there, whether or not they're in the stands or they're out there racing.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of guys who are racing over at the big track on Saturday or Sunday will also be racing at the short track or checking out the racing at the short track.
Quite a few will.
And,
quite a few.
And the fans go across the street as well. They go back and forth between the two tracks as well. And you want to talk about, and it's always fun to go there, don't get me wrong. I mean, we've been to the Ice Bowl.
Makes any time.
But yeah, when you get that many people that are going to Talladega Superspeedway and they go across the street to Talladega Short Track, it makes for a really, really fun time to get all of those people all involved in it. It's a lot of fun.
Especially now with me, when I walk through the gate and, you know, I all of a sudden start getting a little bit of a spasm in my right foot. You know, it doesn't help my matters any, but
yeah.
Hey.
Mr. Plow notes Sayre. I've been out to Sayre. So that's a fun little track too.
Been a long time since I've been to Sayre, but I've been there.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I can't remember the last time I was there, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And again, it's check your local area.
There is running through my memory of the past. There is asphalt and dirt. There is one and only one track in the state of Alabama I have not walked through the gate of.
Okay.
That is North Alabama Speedway in Tuscumbia.
Road trip.
Yeah.
Might be happening soon. Just saying. Thanks, guys, for checking us out, whether you're on the flagship station 95.1 The Mountain or whether you're online by checking us out on CRN Live on YouTube. And by the way, thank you to everybody who's gone there. We've been noticing the subscribers starting to tick up again. We appreciate that. Continue to tell your friends all about us and let them know about us and bring them in. And don't forget, coming up Wednesday afternoon, we'll be back to our regular schedule this weekend. We have Crossed Flags, the podcast. That'll be going up Wednesday afternoon / evening. You'll get a notification of that if you're a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, can't help you. All we can do is tell you it's coming Wednesday. You'll have to find out. I will say this as well. You're going to have to get prepared for a couple of weeks without us because Talladega and Barber back-to-back means this guy right here has got to be in the PA and that guy over there is going to be there with me. And we have no way to do broadcasting from the PA booth at either facility.
Nope.
So we may end up taking 2 weeks off. And that's warning to producer John, again, who's watching from remote. But we're keeping you updated. We'll give you more details coming up next weekend. In the meantime, enjoy the racing this weekend. We'll be back Wednesday with Crossed Flags, our podcast, and we'll be back next Saturday morning right here with CRN right here on 95.1 The Mountain and CRN Live on YouTube. Have a great week. Talk to you then.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
WDNG 1450 AM
and W236 CQ 95.1 FM Anniston.
95.1 The Mountain.
Anniston Oxford's classic station.
This James Spann weather is brought to you by Greenway Chrysler Dodge